Sun Tzu, The Art of War's Ancient Secrets. Part 1. Beyond the Battlefield, Why Sun Tzu Still Matters. More than 2,000 years ago, in the chaos of ancient China's warring states period, a general named Sun Tzu wrote a slim volume that would outlive empires. Its words were simple, its tone measured, yet its wisdom would echo across millennia. He began with a line that has never stopped resonating. The art of war is of vital importance to the state. It is a matter of life and death, a road either to safety or to ruin. At first glance, it sounds like a manual for generals, a handbook for soldiers marching into battle, but look closer and you'll find something far deeper. Sun Tzu was not merely teaching how to win wars, he was teaching how to think, how to move through a world of conflict, both external and internal, with clarity, patience, and precision. Today, his words are studied not only by military strategists, but by CEOs, athletes, psychologists, and even app designers. The same logic that once shaped battlefields now drives the invisible wars of the modern age: competition, innovation, persuasion. When entrepreneurs describe business as a constant war of ideas, or when sports coaches speak about winning the mental game, they are, knowingly or not, echoing Sun Tzu's timeless philosophy. Sun Tzu's genius lies in one quiet realization: conflict is universal. It's not limited to weapons or armies. It's the tension between ambition and obstacle, between what we want and what resists us. Your battlefield might not have swords or soldiers. It might be a boardroom, a classroom, a relationship, or even the mirror in front of you. Each day, we fight for focus, discipline, influence, understanding, and in those fights, Sun Tzu's words become startlingly relevant. He wrote, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. In a world obsessed with noise and confrontation, this is radical advice. To win without conflict, to outthink rather than overpower, is the highest form of mastery. A skilled negotiator closes a deal not by crushing the opponent, but by aligning interests. A diplomat prevents a war not by showing force, but by shaping perception. A creator facing self-doubt wins an invisible battle by mastering their own fear before it takes hold." So why does the art of war still matter? Because it speaks to a truth we've never outgrown, that the greatest victories are won in the mind before they're ever fought in the world. In the digital age, where information moves faster than armies and influences the new territory, Sun Tzu's wisdom becomes even sharper. "All warfare is based on deception," he wrote. But deception, in his eyes, was not trickery. It was strategy, the art of perception, of positioning yourself so the battle is already decided before the first move. Think of a startup that launches quietly, building strength in the shadows before challenging a giant. Think of a social movement that begins as whispers before reshaping nations. This, too, is the art of war. And yet, beneath the tactics and the strategies, there's something profoundly human in Sun Tzu's words, a philosophy of balance, of knowing when to act, when to wait, and when victory costs more than it's worth. He reminds us that wisdom lies not in aggression but in awareness, that true power isn't domination but harmony, and that the greatest generals and the greatest minds win not by destruction but by understanding. So, the next time you face a challenge, whether in your career, your relationships, or your own thoughts, remember this ancient voice whispering through time. Know yourself, and you will win all battles. Because the art of war was never just about war. It was always about you, your choices, your awareness, your inner terrain. Part 2. The Mind of the Master. Who was Sun Tzu? Before he became legend, Sun Tzu was a man shaped by chaos. He lived in a time when China was not a single nation, but a patchwork of rival kingdoms, each one hungry for power, each one on the edge of war. This era, known as the Warring States period, was a time of shifting alliances and endless bloodshed. Kings fought not only with swords, but with ideas, searching for wisdom that could turn survival into supremacy. And from that storm of conflict emerged a strategist who would redefine what it meant to fight. Little is known about Sun Tzu's personal life. Some historians question if he even existed, or if Sun Tzu was a title meaning Master Sun, a name passed down through generations of strategists. But whether man or myth, his words have outlived every dynasty that followed. He was said to have served King Helu of Wu, leading his armies to improbable victories against stronger foes. When the king doubted his discipline, Sun Tzu famously demonstrated his methods by drilling the royal concubines as soldiers, turning laughter into silence and chaos into perfect order. From that day, no one questioned the master's command of both war and mind. But what made Sun Tzu's thinking revolutionary wasn't his experience as a general. It was his philosophy of clarity. He wrote not from anger or ambition, but from observation. To fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. These were not the words of a warlord. They were the reflections of a philosopher, a man who saw war as a disease of the human condition and strategy as a medicine for survival. Sun Tzu's ideas were shaped by the Taoist worldview, the belief in flow, balance, and natural order. Just as water takes the shape of its vessel, a wise commander adapts to every situation. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Water shapes its course according to the ground over which it flows. Centuries later, even martial artists and business leaders would echo this principle. It's the heart of agility, the secret of resilience, to move with the situation, not against it. But beneath that calm wisdom, there was a deeper message. Sun Tzu saw the world not as good or evil, but as a network of forces, momentum, timing, perception. He understood that strength alone meant nothing without understanding. He warned that arrogance destroys and ignorance blinds, that victory without purpose is empty, and that the true general wins through awareness, not destruction. To Sun Tzu, leadership was not control, it was harmony. He wrote, "Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look upon them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you even unto death." This was radical thinking for his time, an era when soldiers were treated as expendable tools of power. Sun Tzu saw them as extensions of the commander's spirit. He believed victory came not from fear, but from trust. A united army, he wrote, could move as one body, swift as the wind, gentle as the forest, fierce as fire, unshakable as the mountain. Over the centuries, the art of war traveled far beyond the battlefields of China. It crossed oceans, languages, and cultures. From samurai in Japan to European generals to modern executives, each found in Sun Tzu a mirror for their own struggles. Because, in truth, his book was never only about conflict between armies. It was about conflict within ourselves, the battle between fear and reason, emotion and discipline, chaos and clarity. Sun Tzu taught that before one can master strategy, one must master the mind. Before conquering others, one must first conquer the self. His life, whether legend or history, became the embodiment of his own teaching: calm under pressure, clarity amid chaos, and victory without violence. As we move forward into his philosophy, we'll explore the foundation of all strategy, the principle at the heart of every human challenge. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Part 3. Mastering your inner terrain. Know thyself and your opponent. Every battle begins long before the first strike is made. It begins in the mind, in the quiet space between fear and intention. Sun Tzu understood this better than anyone. He wrote, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle." It's one of the most quoted passages in human history. And yet, most people never realize it's not about war at all. It's about awareness. To know yourself is not a slogan. It's a discipline, a form of strategic intelligence. Before facing any challenge, Sun Tzu demands that we map our inner landscape, our strengths, our weaknesses, our patterns of thought, and our blind spots. He believed that ignorance of one's own limits is the most dangerous battlefield of all. Because if you don't understand what drives you, fear, pride, desire, then every decision you make is already compromised. In today's world, this lesson is more relevant than ever. We live in an age of information, but not always of clarity. We scroll, react, and compete, often without knowing why. We enter our daily battles for attention, validation, or success without understanding what we're really fighting for. Sun Tzu would warn us, strategy without self-knowledge is chaos wearing confidence. To truly know yourself means to pause before action, to see your emotions as signals, not commands, to recognize when pride is disguising itself as ambition and when fear is masquerading as caution. But Sun Tzu's wisdom didn't stop with the self. He placed equal weight on knowing the opponent, not as an enemy to hate, but as a force to understand. In his world, the enemy was a problem to be solved, not a person to be destroyed. If ignorant both of your enemy and yourself, you are sure to be in peril. Understanding others their motives, emotions, and perceptions, is the heart of effective strategy. In battle, this meant reading the terrain and predicting the enemy's movement. In life, it means reading the room, the market, the conversation, the moment. Imagine walking into a negotiation. Your instinct is to push, to dominate, to win. But Sun Tzu would whisper, "Observe first. See the landscape before you move. By listening, you uncover what others truly value. You learn when to press and when to yield, when to appear strong and when to appear humble. Because in Sun Tzu's universe, knowledge is power, and perception, not aggression, determines victory. In modern terms, this is emotional intelligence, the ability to see through conflict rather than be consumed by it, to read people not through their words, but through their energy, to anticipate reactions and move accordingly. This is how skilled leaders guide teams through crisis, how artists connect deeply with audiences, how individuals navigate relationships without burning bridges. Sun Tzu might never have heard the phrase self-awareness, but he lived it as a law of nature. Every external victory is rooted in internal mastery. He wrote, "He who knows when he can fight and when he cannot will be victorious." This is the art of timing, of restraint, to know when to act boldly and when patience is the sharper weapon, to recognize that sometimes walking away is not defeat, it's wisdom. The battlefield Sun Tzu describes is not made of dirt and steel. It's made of decisions, emotions, and awareness. It's inside all of us. So ask yourself, what are you truly fighting for? Do you know your terrain, your habits, your impulses, your fears? Do you understand the terrain of others, their hopes, their fears, their motives? To master your inner terrain is to walk through life with strategic grace, calm, deliberate, and clear-eyed. It's to understand that real victory is not in conquest, but in comprehension. Sun Tzu taught that before any weapon is drawn, the greatest war has already begun, and often it ends within us. Part 4, the art of deception, illusion, adaptation, and opportunity. In every great struggle, from ancient wars to modern negotiations, victory belongs not to the strongest, but to the one who sees the unseen. Sun Tzu understood that perception was the true weapon of war. He wrote, "All warfare is based on deception." But what did he truly mean? To Sun Tzu, deception was not about lying. It was about strategy. It was the art of shaping what others see, of creating illusion to guide action before action begins. When able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. In these words, deception becomes a mirror, reflecting not truth or falsehood, but timing, perception, and intent. In ancient times, this meant masking troop movements, spreading false rumors, or creating phantom armies to confuse the enemy. But in the modern world, this same principle governs the invisible wars of business, politics, and communication. In boardrooms, marketing campaigns, and social media feeds, perception is the new battleground. Every brand, every influencer, every public figure, all craft narratives designed to control attention and direct belief. Sun Tzu would recognize this instantly. He'd call it positioning, the art of defining the landscape before your opponent even enters it. Consider a startup in 2024, small team, no funding, no visibility, yet within a year it dethrones an industry giant. How? By appearing small and harmless, while quietly building alliances and innovation behind the scenes. While the giant relaxed, confident in its dominance, the startup struck, swift, precise, and unexpected. Sun Tzu would have smiled. He wrote, "Pretend inferiority and encourage his arrogance. In modern terms, underestimate me at your peril." But deception is not just a weapon, it's a lens. It teaches us to see beyond appearances, to understand that what we perceive is often not the full picture. Every argument, every negotiation, every power dynamic is shaped by invisible intentions and unspoken fears. Those who learn to sense what isn't said, to hear the silence between the words, gain the greatest advantage of all, awareness. Sun Tzu also warned against becoming a victim of your own illusions. If your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. He understood the trap of ego, that pride blinds and anger reveals. In our daily lives, this is the battle of emotional control. When insulted, we react. When threatened, we push back. But the strategist, the wise one, pauses, observes, calculates, adapts. The power of deception lies not in manipulation, but in mastery of reaction. Sun Tzu compared strategy to water, shapeless, adaptive, unstoppable. Just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare there are no constant conditions. To survive is to flow. To win is to adapt faster than your opponent can respond. In an era of rapid change, technology evolving daily, trends shifting overnight, this lesson is more urgent than ever. Those who cling to rigid plans fall behind. Those who flow, who bend, twist, and pivot, become unstoppable. Opportunity, to Sun Tzu, was the child of chaos. He wrote, "In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity." To him, confusion was not a curse. It was potential energy. When others panic, the strategist observes. When others react, the strategist positions. Because chaos is not the end. It's the beginning of creativity, innovation, and advantage. To deceive, adapt, and seize opportunity is not to betray truth. It is to understand human nature. It is to master not the opponent, but the moment. In a world that rewards noise, Sun Tzu teaches the strength of subtlety. In a culture of constant reaction, he teaches the power of stillness. And in a time when everyone wants to appear strong, he reminds us that sometimes the greatest power lies in appearing weak until it's time to strike. Part 5. Victory without combat, the power of preparation and positioning. For Sun Tzu, the greatest victory was not the bloodiest one, it was the one that never required a fight. He wrote, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. At the heart of the art of war lies this quiet paradox, that the highest form of strength is not in confrontation, but in control." In the chaos of the warring states, most generals sought glory through destruction, to crush, conquer, and claim. But Sun Tzu saw that even a victorious battle leaves scars, on land, on people, on the spirit. So he pursued a higher goal, to win before the battle ever begins, not by force, but by preparation, positioning, and perception. He believed every conflict was won or lost long before the first move. Through planning, awareness, and discipline. To him, battles were merely the visible surface, the final ripple of decisions made in silence long before swords were drawn. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. This is one of Sun Tzu's deepest lessons, that foresight is the most powerful weapon of all. To shape the battlefield is to shape reality itself. It means choosing the ground on which you fight, physically, mentally, emotionally. The wise do not stumble into battles they cannot win. They build the conditions in which victory becomes inevitable. In life, this means anticipation. It means preparing for the meeting, the project, the crisis, so thoroughly that the outcome becomes predictable. When others act impulsively, the strategist has already rehearsed the moment in their mind. When others panic, the strategist remains calm because the terrain was mapped long before the storm arrived. In modern life, this principle echoes everywhere. The best negotiators resolve tension before it ignites. The best leaders avoid crises by foreseeing them. Even in personal relationships, we can win without fighting, by listening, empathizing, and dissolving conflict before it becomes war. A calm word at the right time. A question instead of a demand. Understanding instead of resistance. These are the modern equivalents of Sun Tzu's invisible victories. He taught that confrontation is a last resort, not a strategy, but a failure of one. He wrote, "To fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting." To many, that sounds idealistic. But for Sun Tzu, it was simply efficient. Why waste energy fighting when you can redirect it? Why destroy when you can influence? Sun Tzu believed that true mastery was invisible. The perfect strategist leaves no trace of struggle. The best leader resolves conflict so smoothly that others never notice there was danger at all. In this way, victory becomes almost spiritual, a harmony between intent and outcome, effort and ease. He would say, "The skillful fighter puts himself beyond the possibility of defeat." That's not arrogance, it's alignment. Preparation so complete that risk dissolves into confidence. In the ancient world, Sun Tzu's generals built fortresses not of stone, but of understanding. They mapped supply lines, studied weather, predicted enemy behavior, but they also studied themselves, their soldiers' morale, their own emotions, their timing. Because to prepare the outer world, you must first prepare the inner one. In our lives, this means clarity of purpose, knowing what we want and why. Only then can we position ourselves in ways that make conflict unnecessary. Preparation is not about control, It's about readiness, the ability to meet the unknown with calm precision. Sun Tzu's warriors were not anxious before battle. They were serene, because they knew that victory was not something to chase, it was something already created. Every decision, every plan, every act of awareness was a brushstroke in the painting of success. And when the moment came, they simply stepped into what was already prepared. To win without combat is not the way of cowards, it is the way of masters. It is the art of turning foresight into freedom and patience into power. In a noisy world obsessed with reaction, Sun Tzu reminds us that the greatest strength is found in stillness, in the quiet confidence of those who have already won, long before the world even realizes the battle has begun. Part 6. Timing and Momentum, the Rhythm of Battle. There is a moment, in every battle, every performance, every decision, when time itself seems to hold its breath. Sun Tzu called this the art of timing, the ability to act not too early and not too late, to move when the moment is ripe and not a second before. He wrote, "He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight." For Sun Tzu, victory was not a product of force alone, but of rhythm, momentum, and attunement to the flow of events. In ancient warfare, the skilled commander waited for the perfect instant, when the enemy was disorganized, when the terrain favored his troops, when morale was at its peak. He did not rush forward in pride, nor hesitate in fear. He moved with timing as precise as a musician's note, and that precision turned chaos into harmony. Today, the battlefield looks different, but the principle remains the same. Timing governs everything: a stock trade, a speech, a conversation, a launch, a confession. Act too soon, and the world isn't ready. Wait too long, and the opportunity dissolves. But move at the exact moment of balance, and the world seems to open like a gate. This is not luck. It is awareness, the same awareness Sun Tzu demanded of his generals. To see victory only when it is within the ken of the common herd is not the acme of excellence. The master sees victory before it becomes visible, because he moves not by impulse, but by rhythm. Sun Tzu described the dynamics of battle in the language of energy, what he called shi, the momentum that builds naturally when preparation, opportunity, and timing align. To him, momentum was like the force of a rolling boulder. Once set in motion, it carries its own power. The momentum of one skilled in war is overwhelming, their attack is precise, and their energy is as the release of a crossbow. Momentum is not strength, it's direction multiplied by timing. It's the moment when a single action, perfectly timed, becomes unstoppable. Think of an athlete who waits, breathes, and strikes at the exact second the opening appears. A surfer catching the precise crest of a wave. A chess player who sacrifices one piece, knowing it sets in motion a chain that wins the game. This is Sun Tzu's philosophy in motion, effortless precision born from patience. He would say, "Move only when you see an advantage, do not move unless there is something to gain." And yet, he also warned that hesitation is just as dangerous as haste. Because momentum decays, and timing waits for no one. Momentum is alive, it must be guided. Too much energy without focus becomes chaos. Too little, and it dies before it begins. Sun Tzu compared a well-led army to a taut bowstring, full of energy, ready but still. The release, the action, happens only when the target aligns, not a heartbeat before. That tension between stillness and motion is where mastery lives. In our lives, timing and momentum are the pulse of success. The entrepreneur who launches at the right cultural moment. The artist who releases their work just as the world is ready to feel it. The person who knows when to speak, and when silence says more. Momentum doesn't come from constant movement. It comes from alignment, the rhythm between thought, feeling, and action. In this rhythm, chaos becomes choreography. Sun Tzu's wisdom flows through this principle. There is a season for everything, a tide to every battle. He wrote, "In all fighting, the direct method may be used for joining battle, but indirect methods will be needed in order to secure victory." He reminds us that time itself is an ally, if we learn to move with it instead of against it. To force the moment is to lose it. To sense the moment is to master it. And to master time is to master destiny. Momentum is not about constant motion. It is the dance between pressure and release, between patience and precision. Those who move too soon exhaust themselves. Those who wait too long fade into obscurity. But those who move in rhythm become unstoppable. Because Sun Tzu's art was never about war. It was about timing, the heartbeat of every victory, and the silent rhythm that guides the wise through chaos. Part 7. The invisible forces, morale, leadership, and unity. Before every battle there is silence. And in that silence, you can feel it. The weight of belief, the pulse of unity, the invisible energy that turns a group of individuals into something far greater than themselves. Sun Tzu called this moral influence, the unseen force that binds the hearts of people to a common purpose. He wrote, "The moral law causes the people to be in complete accord with their ruler, so that they will follow him regardless of their lives, undismayed by any danger." This was not about fear, nor blind obedience. It was about trust, the invisible thread that gives strength to every structure. Sun Tzu understood what many leaders still forget, that no army, no company, no movement can stand if the people do not believe in the heart guiding them. Weapons and tactics win battles, but morale wins wars. When soldiers lose faith, their blades become heavy. When a team loses trust, even the best strategy collapses. But when people believe, when they feel seen, respected, and united, their power multiplies beyond measure. He wrote, "Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look on them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you unto death." This is not poetic exaggeration, it's psychological truth. The leader who inspires loyalty through empathy commands not through fear, but through purpose. Leadership, to Sun Tzu, was not domination, it was harmony. He described 5 essential traits of a great leader: wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness. Each one a balance between strength and compassion. Wisdom, to see the whole picture. Sincerity, to build trust. Benevolence, to care for those you lead. Courage, to act decisively. Strictness, to maintain discipline and fairness. Too much of anyone, he warned, leads to imbalance. A wise leader must be both firm and kind, like water that shapes the stone without breaking it. In the modern world, these lessons echo everywhere. A CEO who leads through fear burns through talent. A teacher who commands without empathy loses connection. But a leader who listens, who builds confidence instead of control, creates something far more powerful: loyalty through belief. That loyalty becomes the invisible shield that protects an organization, a movement, or a dream through every crisis. Unity, Sun Tzu said, was not automatic. It had to be cultivated, for even the strongest army is fragile if divided within. He warned, "If soldiers are punished before they have grown attached to you, they will not submit. If they are not punished after they have become attached, they cannot be governed." Balance again. Compassion and discipline. Freedom and structure. He understood that harmony does not mean weakness, it means alignment. The kind of alignment that lets people move as one mind, driven by shared conviction. In the unseen realm of morale and leadership, strategy becomes something living, because the greatest generals and the greatest leaders do not just command, they awaken. They awaken clarity, purpose, and courage in the people who stand beside them, and in doing so, they transform ordinary individuals into an unstoppable force. Sun Tzu's message was simple: you cannot lead others until you first learn to lead yourself. Morale begins within, unity begins with honesty, and leadership begins with understanding what you serve. He who knows himself and knows others will not be endangered in 100 battles. To know yourself is to master ego. To know others is to master empathy, and together they form the foundation of every lasting victory. So remember this: the invisible forces are never truly invisible. They live in your tone, your patience, your example, and in the way you make others feel safe enough to believe. Sun Tzu's wisdom endures because it speaks not to soldiers, but to souls, to the leaders, creators, and dreamers who understand that no victory lasts unless it is shared. Because unity, not power, is the ultimate strength. Conclusion. Sun Tzu's Art of War is more than a book about battles. It is a guide to understanding the forces that shape our lives: strategy, timing, perception, leadership, and above all, ourselves. Every challenge you face is a battlefield of its own. Every choice is a moment of strategy. And every victory, whether in work, relationships, or personal growth, begins with awareness and preparation. The wisdom of Sun Tzu teaches us that power is not brute force, but patience. Not domination, but alignment. Not reaction, but mastery of the self. Carry these lessons into your life. See the hidden patterns, flow with opportunity, lead with clarity, and remember, the greatest victory is often invisible, silent, and born from within. The battlefield is everywhere. The art of victory is within you. And with Sun Tzu's guidance, you can face every challenge with wisdom, courage, and clarity.